Good evening. Welcome to Columbia Law School. My name is Michael Gerard. I'm a professor here and director of the Sabin Center for Climate Change Law, which is co-sponsoring this evening's event with the Earth Institute of Columbia University, the Columbia Center on Global Energy Policy, the Columbia Journal of Environmental Law, and the Columbia Law School and Environmental Law Society. As everyone here is aware, the 21st Conference of the Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, COP21, took place last December in Paris. At that meeting, a landmark agreement was reached among all the nations of the world on steps that need to be taken to prevent dangerous anthropogenic interference with the climate system. But of course, now comes the really hard part, which is implementing the Paris Agreement. The next Conference of the Parties, COP22, will take place in November in Marrakesh. And at that conference, many important steps will be taken to implement the Paris Agreement, to fill in some of the gaps, and to take other essential action to help fight the climate problem. We are deeply honored to have with us this evening several of the leaders of the government of Morocco who will be hosting the conference and helping to lead the deliberations. Before we introduce our distinguished visitors from Morocco, I want to call on David Sandalo to say a few words of context. Mr. Sandalo is the inaugural fellow of Columbia's Center on Global Energy Policy. Prior to joining Columbia, he held several high-level posts with the United States federal government at the Department of State, the Department of Energy, and the National Security Council.
Well, thank you, Michael, both for that introduction and for all the great work that you and Michael Berger do at the Sabin Center in Climate Change Law. It's great to be here today and to help welcome everybody here on behalf of the Center for Global Energy Policy at the School of International Public Affairs at Columbia. Especially a pleasure to welcome the Minister and Ambassador here and their entire delegation. This is a very timely event, and it's very timely for a number of reasons. It's timely because of the extraordinary weather and climate that we have seen in the past months and years. You know, for those who aren't following this, August was the hottest year on record since temperature records have been gathered over the course of the past 130 years. It actually tied with July as the hottest months ever in the 130-year record. And you might say that, well, 1 or 2 months don't make a trend, but it turns out that June was the hottest June ever recorded globally. And May 2016 was the hottest May ever recorded, and April was the hottest April ever recorded, all the way back through the beginning of the year. 2015 was the warmest year on record, 2014 was the warmest year before that, and 15 of the warmest 16 years in history have been in this century. Here in the United States, we've had a series of remarkable weather events. The most shocking in some ways were rain events that happened in Louisiana a month or two ago, where there were 3 inches of rain an hour falling. 3 inches of rain an hour. And extraordinary flooding. And scientists who are working right now in attributing extreme weather events to climate change say that the increase in heat-trapping gases in our atmosphere has doubled the probability of that happening, of an event like that happening. So, and then the shrinking of the Arctic ice has been extraordinary as well. So this event is timely, I think, because of what's happening on the planet. It's also timely because of the much more encouraging, I think, the extraordinary advances we're seeing in clean energy. I had the privilege of meeting earlier today with senior officials from the United Arab Emirates, and they told me that they've received bids for solar projects in Abu Dhabi recently at under 3 cents a kilowatt hour. The cost of solar energy is coming down remarkably, and I think that's going to transform energy systems around the world. The cost of storage is coming down, and that's going to be important too. And here in this country, the United States, has cut its greenhouse gas emissions more than any country on the planet in the past 10 years. And that's for a number of reasons. It includes major technological advances in the production of shale gas, which have allowed us to produce natural gas cheaply and displace coal, which was a major source of our power. And so we've managed to reduce greenhouse gas emissions enormously as a result of that. So a third reason is timely, and then I'll sit down. A third reason this is timely is because of the diplomatic achievements of the past year. The Paris Agreement, which Michael referred to as a historic agreement, it was an enormous breakthrough and a step forward. And it stood on the foundation of individual national climate action plans from more than 180 countries, I believe. And now the baton is passed to Morocco. And the next stage of this process will take place at COP22 in November in Marrakesh. And it's going to be an important meeting in setting the tone for implementation of the Paris Agreement, and also an important gathering point. I believe that these annual conferences of parties play an important role in bringing governments together, and that's what gets the headlines. But they also play an important role in bringing civil society together. And I've been particularly gratified that the Moroccan leadership has been so attentive to the role of civil society in this whole process. So as we meet today, I want to thank our distinguished guests from Morocco for joining us, and thank all of you for coming.
Thank you very much. It is now my honor to call to the microphone Her Excellency Dr. Hakima El Haita, the Minister of the Environment of Morocco. She holds the title of High-Level Climate Champion. She's a member of the Executive Board of the Popular Movement, MP, and chairwoman of their International Relations Committee. She holds a PhD in Environmental Engineering from the School of Mines of Saint Etienne in France. The minister needs to leave at 7 o'clock, so we will excuse her at that time and then be followed by the ambassador. Let me just also say that this event is being videotaped, and and the tapes will be posted on the website of the Sabin Center for Climate Change Law. Minister.
Excellencies, dear colleagues, and dear hosts, I would like first to thank you for your kind invitation and tell you how I'm really delighted to be here today because of many reasons. First, I'm the champion for the climate, and this is my job, and I need to champion you for the climate and to tackle climate. But the second reason is that you give me the opportunity to meet with youth, and this is maybe my second conference with youth, and for me youth is hope and is the future. And what we are doing now with the Paris Agreement, with the SDGs, is building a new foundation for a new future. This is what we are doing, and we need you to do that. We need university like yours. We need engineers like the one you are training, like we need innovation. We need to inspire youth to go for this transition. So today is we are in the Climate Week, and today we were invited to the Climate Week while the UN Secretary General was launching a very important meeting, a high-level segment meeting on migration. And tomorrow, President Obama will launch and will host a very important meeting on refugees. And why? Because America and United States want to find a solution to deal with the 4 million Syrians who migrate to Europe and destabilize all the European countries. And the issue now is, the question now is to know what are we going to do to deal with the climate refugees, because climate refugees are not a virtual reality, are not virtual, they are real. This is a reality, and between 2011 and 2014, we registered 68 million climate refugees. By 2050, the IPCC said that we will deal and we will have to deal with 250 million of refugees. So, of climate refugees. Why people are migrating? Because they are tackling climate change. Because now that I'm speaking to you, 1.2 billion people have no access to clean energy. While I'm speaking to you, 650 million people have no access to drinking water. 7 million people are dying every day because of pollution around the world. And these are something we can't control by speeches. These are issues we only need to control by acting. And this is time to act. We have this historical year. 2015 was indeed a historical year. We adopted the SDGs, the 17 goals, and the banner of the SDGs was eradication of poverty and human dignity. That was the banner of the SDGs. And we adopted the Paris Agreement. What is about the Paris Agreement? Yes, we need to decrease the CO2 emission because they are the cause, or they are creating the threats of climate change. But the Paris Agreement is more than that. The Paris Agreement is about human rights, is about development, is about dignity. And without the implementation of the Paris Agreement, no SDGs will be reached. And this is the point. The Paris Agreement and the SDGs are the simple two faces of the same coin. We need to implement the Paris Agreement. 150 leaders of this world committed in Paris to implement the Paris Agreement, committed in Paris to decrease the CO2 emissions, committed in Paris to go for a decarbonation of our civilization. They committed in Paris to help the vulnerable countries with $100 billion a year from 2020, and to help them to enhance their capacity to be able to adapt their development to climate change and to have a new technologies on their land. This was not because we are very generous. This is because we need to stabilize the people, because